Maia Miller and Lauren Hayes. Teaming up in a solo world. Collaboration in freelance accessibility work. Alipam. Gold sponsors ANZ, Intopia and Telstra. Silver sponsors Canva and Coles. Supporters Rumour, the design recruiter.
My name is Maia. I am the founder and managing director of Aleph Accessibility. I am originally from Canada, but I live now in Wellington, New Zealand. I started out my journey in tech as a web developer and caught the bug, as we say, doing web development, and then slowly moved my way to into accessibility. Got to be able to certify myself as an accessibility specialist, so you know I'm a nerd in accessibility. And then 2023, I founded my own consultancy, and now I'm lucky to be able to do accessibility full-time, doing consulting, training, that kind of thing, all across New Zealand and Australia.
Kia ora koutou. Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren, and I'm a digital and arts accessibility consultant. So in addition to auditing and training, I also work mostly with theatre makers and arts event producers to help make the arts more accessible, particularly for blind and low vision audiences. I've been working in digital accessibility since 2016, starting out doing user testing and then building on my coding and web dev knowledge over the years. I've been freelancing since 2019, establishing Lauren Hayes Consulting, and I've been working and living in New Zealand since 2022. So today, Maia and I want to talk about our freelance partnership, why and how it works, and what creating an accessible work environment looks like for us. If you're freelancing or considering becoming a sole trader, we hope that our talk will give you some ideas and inspiration about different ways of working. So we're not going to describe what we look like. This is a trend that I'm not particularly comfortable with. You can come and argue about that with me later if you like. Oh, thank you. And I will also say, but for context, I'll say that I'm blind, that I'm using a braille display, and Maia is sighted, and she's doing her magic tech thing with the slides, with the clicker. Now, if our slides were being audited, we would probably suggest marking our images as decorative because they're not like, you know, that informative. We've got a lot of icons to accompany most of our slides, which is just bullet points of what we're talking about. Like there's a stopwatch, for example, to represent flexibility, or hands reaching out to each other when we talk about like partnership and responsibility. And occasionally there are cartoon images of us. My take on these is that they're just shiny things for the light-dependent people in the room to look at. So we won't be describing the slides. However, you can look at a digital copy of them if you would like, because we have left the alt text in the images there. And if you want to follow along with the slides, they're accessible Google Slides. The link should be on the screen now, and it's also in, it's not?
Sorry, I didn't put it in the slides, but you'll read it out. Yeah.
It's in the Slack group, the Alibite Slack group in the general channel, and I'm also going to read out the link. So it's short url.at/Y6P r7. So that's short url.at/Y6P r7.
Cool, thanks, Lauren. All right, so let's dive into it. Lauren and I are both freelancers in the accessibility field, like we mentioned. And the rumors are true. There are some great things about freelancing. Lauren and I put our heads together as to what exactly we love about freelancing. First thing is probably what you think of is the independence and flexibility. That's certainly there. I would very often get in trouble. Basically in every single job I've gotten in trouble, and I didn't understand why until I started working for myself and realizing that being able to control what I work on, how I work on it, and when I work on it is really important to me. Lauren and I are both have really diverse interests, and that includes within accessibility. Like she said, she works in the arts, and I like the technical kind of thing. So being our own boss means that we get to cater the work that we do to highlight those skills and spend more time in those areas. And in a similar vein, the diversity of the type of work that we do is also quite broad. As your own boss, we're doing all aspects of the accessibility work, but we're also doing all aspects of running that business, so to speak, the marketing and the finance and all that kind of stuff. And it's not so much the individual tasks that we might enjoy, but rather the diversity of those tasks. So you wake up every day doing something different, and that's what we really enjoy about it.
But there are also some pitfalls as well. So you have lots of time alone, and this is not really great if you're a procrastinator like me, or you like talking to people. If you don't like people, then great, go for your life. There's also gaps in knowledge. So I think in the accessibility space, sometimes it can feel like you have to be an expert in everything, but not everybody wants to or can specialize in all the things, and that's okay. But you do have to be responsible for allocating time to professional development and growing your skill sets. You have no one to keep you accountable or to motivate you when the going gets tough. You have no one to do quality assurance, QA, or to proofread your work. You have no sounding board for problem solving. There's really great online accessibility groups, but they can't take the place of direct accountability and partnership with a colleague.
So we have these two pluses and minuses. How do we reconcile the two and make the best of this freelance world? Well, that's when Lauren and I met. We actually first met online in 2024, despite the fact that we're practically neighbors. Wellington's a very small place. And we met basically to just get a sense of meeting somebody who's local and working in the field. That was great. But we also had in the back of our minds that we were each looking for somebody who could support the work that we were doing. We didn't know exactly what that might look like, but we were kind of scoping out. So a first project came by, and it was a small project, so that was a great opportunity to give us a chance to collaborate, to try collaborating with each other, and basically spy on each other and see how we work. What is our work style, our communication style? Everybody has a different sense of what time is and what organization is, and that's okay, but you want to make sure that you're somewhat in the same page about what that looks like. And basically since then, we've gotten different projects, different sizes, and with every new project presents a new opportunity to shape the way that we partner together.
And so what does that look like practically? So we are still independent consultants. We run our own businesses and can still work as sole traders. So if we're not working on projects together, we'll be going off and doing our own things. We don't market as a partnership. We contract to each other for audits and consulting work. So whoever is approached by the client initially will take the role of project lead, and then we bring the other in. In terms of areas of collaboration, we work together on the whole of a digital accessibility audit generally, but if auditing is required at the design stage, Maia will take this component. We have not yet found an accessible wireframe solution for me to work on the design consulting. If anybody has ideas about that, we would love to chat with you. For complex audits, we work together virtually. So I will screen share, Maia will describe the design and the layout of a site, and we will compare that to how the screen reader is presenting that same information. For audits, garden variety audits that are more straightforward, we work independently, but we will still come together for regular check-ins throughout the process. And of course, before you start an audit, you need to estimate and quote for it. And we do this together because it's just kind of easier to get an idea of timelines and scheduling, particularly if we're also working on our own projects. And it also helps us to answer the important question, can I afford to eat this week? And finally, we prioritise flexibility and trust. So when we completed our first large project together. Maia was travelling for the first part of that, and then we both had a period of ill health. And I admit that I was a little worried that we weren't going to meet our client deadline, but we made it work. Sometimes I would work at really odd hours, more on that later. Or I'd come back after a day or so out of action and find that there was a bunch of issues for me to QA and vice versa for Maia. We had to learn about and then trust each other's ways of working and communicate about what that would look like along the way.
There's obviously benefits to this partnership. That's why we decided to do it. So let's explore some of those. We initially got into it because we knew this would be better for our clients. Lauren identified early on those gaps in knowledge that you can learn about accessibility all you want, but you know that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So being able to fill each other's gaps in knowledge has been really valuable. In fact, we've gotten a lot of client feedback that specifically has told us that they really appreciate having two very different perspectives on any given issue or like review kind of thing. And not only are those perspectives different, but they're also better quality too. So I can fiddle with a screen reader and do screen reader testing, but me being able to hand it over to Lauren, well, first off, not only can she do it much faster than me, but she can also do it at a much deeper level and in that way that it's not just technically compliant, but actually screen reader user-friendly. So it's taking the theoretical, and if there's visual stuff that she had, and she would give instructions to people on how to audit that. It's taking that theoretical and bringing it more practical. So the quality that we're giving to our clients is a lot better. In the QA and validation is a lot better as well. That quality echoes in that process too. It's always really valuable to have somebody else looking over your work. What we do as accessibility specialists is really difficult sometimes to communicate technical things, what's happening on a screen or what's happening in assistive technology. And so being able to ask somebody, does this make sense? And them saying, no, it doesn't. And then being able to write it in a way that actually does make sense means that the client is going to get a better product for them. But also checking, in a consulting situation, I've come up with this solution. Is this the best solution that I could give to the client? Is there a different way that I could code up this solution that would be better for them? So we can bounce off those ideas off of each other. And finally, both Lauren and I have some funny stories about how we've discovered more complexities and bugs together than when we would have discovered them independently, or at least that we would discover them earlier on. And that's usually because maybe something was not keyboard accessible or I was citing something so I didn't interact with it. And being able to catch these things earlier on in the scoping step, for example, means that we have a better understanding of the nature of the audit. We can communicate that to our client, and it's just a much more transparent transaction. There's also benefits to ourselves, though. We kind of anticipated those benefits, but really what we found was that our lives are better as well. I talked about how we both like diversity, and that variety really is just accentuated even more. We could be doing 2 audits at the same time, but like Lauren was saying, because we change roles depending on the client that we have and the communications and stuff, 2 audits that we're doing at the same time, we could be doing different activities within those audits. And that just makes it more fun. Having a sounding board and somebody to vent to is really valuable. What we do as accessibility people is very niche. And so having somebody to be able to go into it and say, this person, they labeled this button in 3 different ways. Why are there so many labeling techniques? A lot of people won't understand that, but having a buddy here who does understand it is really valuable. And finally, one thing that we gain a lot is that we learn, and we learn on the job too. So it's not about going off into our corners and learning new things, although we do that. But being able to, for example, read each other's bug reports teaches us a thing or two as we're doing an audit itself. And that on-the-job mentoring, in a sense, has been really valuable to each of us.
And so all of these benefits that we've just talked about culminate in the prevention of burnout. Well, that's kind of the ideal. So burnout is such a big issue, especially for freelancers, but also for people working in accessibility, the accessibility space generally. There's plenty of people that have written articles about burnout and how to prevent it, and that it can just come up a lot. And since partnering together, we've both commented that we are less stressed. It's not that we don't enjoy the auditing, but just having that shared responsibility and the benefits that we've talked about really takes the pressure off. So what does creating an accessible environment look like? Well, because we're freelancing, this means that we get to decide what this looks like from the ground up and create our own rules. We largely work in Google Docs and Google Sheets. It was really important from the outset to use tools that were accessible with a screen reader for me. I don't want to have to rely on Maia for support to complete a task that I could do independently with the right tools. And I have experience using more complex auditing software, but it never quite ticked the boxes in terms of ease of use, and it therefore increased the mental load. We want to lead by example, so we ensure that everything we produce, from quotes to invoices, audit results, and everything in between, is accessible for clients. Finally, hello perimenopause. If you know, you know. And I want to talk about this. I have so much to say that it could be its own separate presentation, but it's something that impacts on half the population. So even if it doesn't impact you directly, we need to be talking about it, because the symptoms, at least 34 of them, are incredibly disabling. I'm used to advocating for access barriers relating to being blind, but this has been a whole different ballgame, and it hit me really suddenly and I wasn't expecting it. And so I had to suddenly think, okay, what does access look like for me now? And I'm still working that out. It's kind of been a long journey, and I'm happy to chat with people about that later as well. But so far it's involved maybe sometimes working in the middle of the night because my sleep schedule is really messed up. But if I can't adjust my work hours because of time-sensitive things or meetings, then I've had to learn not to feel guilty or like I'm failing because I've taken some sleep medication, because at least it makes me feel like a functional human. It's about telling people around me what's going on, not just family or friends, but checking in with Maia and other colleagues who I work with regularly about symptoms that I might be experiencing, like brain fog or fatigue, that might impact on my work. And I hated doing this initially because I felt like I was kind of letting the side down and it's still taboo to talk about. But if we don't talk about it, and I think it is an access issue in our workplace, then nothing will change. And accessibility is as much about feeling safe enough to communicate what we need, and safe in the knowledge that our access requirements will be respected and that we'll be listened to.
I think freelance is often romanticized. Oh, you gotta be your own boss, do your own thing, have all the time in the world. And our experience has been that there are definitely some benefits like we talked about, but really it's a work structure like any other, and there are positives and minuses just like any other work structure. And for some people it works, and for some people it doesn't. And maybe there's a middle ground in between. And that's what Lauren and I wanted to talk about today, and just demonstrate a different, yet another model of how you can go about doing your work. We encourage you to explore yourself and introspect on the things that are your strengths and also your weaknesses, and be realistic, not hard on yourself, but realistic. Explore your environment and the factors in your environment that are in your control, and look at the relationships around you, and think about how you can create a work structure that works for you so that you can be the best version of yourself as you do this important work. Please connect with Lauren and I. We have so much to say about this topic in only a short amount of time. I have on screen our contact information. So Lauren is we're both on LinkedIn. Lauren's Lauren Hayes, and you can email her at lauren@laurenhayesconsulting.com. And I'm Maia Miller on LinkedIn, and you can check out my website, alephaccessibility.net. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ali Camp, Celebrating 10 years.